practical approach to divine healing. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. How true it is that God is glorified in the Son. Not that God has to be glorified in the Son, but God glorifies himself in the Son and through the Son. Because the Son and the Father are one, both existing together, never apart, because there could be no separation at any time between the Father and the Son. God being infinite in nature, he must be everywhere. Therefore, the Son and the Father must be always together. Jesus knew this clearly and distinctly when he said, "It is the Father who ever remains within me, performing his own deeds." Since man's advent upon the earth, there has been men and women who had the wisdom and power to heal. Some of these healings have been so amazing that the mind of man could not comprehend them. Therefore, skeptics have arisen who have made every effort to deny these amazing transformations on the ground of their apparent impossibility according to man's understanding. It is very, very limited indeed to reason that his mind is conditioned from the time he is born. And therefore his understanding is according to his conditioning, so he hasn't got very much understanding, has he? Therefore he tries to make ideas about the infinite in his mind. He tries to create ideas about God. He has a belief in his mind. He makes up all these things in his mind about God. So he has these ideas and images and his own creations, and he says, this is God. God created according to his own conditioning what he thinks that God should be. Therefore, you see, he's made his God up in his mind. So what is made up in his mind is truly not God. Therefore, what you make up in your mind about the truth too is not the truth, because what you make up in your mind is not truth. What you make up in your mind is something, an image or a belief that's your own creation. But you can't create God. That's a certainty about that, because God is infinite in nature. Therefore, what you create is but an idea and an image. And I'll repeat again to you these words: what you make up in your mind is not truth, is not God. And if you remember that, you will see how you can dispense with those stupid ideas, those limited ideas you create in yourself, by yourself, through your conditioning, which you create, and you say, this is truth. If you can comprehend my meaning, the meaning I'm telling you now, then you will see you can discard these images and beliefs about God, and you see you have no truth at all, have you? Not in your mind. But if you progress further, without further ideas or images or beliefs, you will arrive at that which is truth itself. And I am the truth. You are the truth. You are the living truth. I am the living life. You don't have to create an idea of the fact that I'm alive and you're alive. You see me alive. And you know that you are alive yourself. You know that you are living. It's not an idea or an image or a belief. It's an actual knowing, which is beyond belief. It's something that is beyond belief. It's something that's beyond your mind. It's something that's beyond your own creations, because it is. But nevertheless, that which is, you create with. You create with that very truth that is within yourself. But you create an idea of that. Don't you see how stupid it is? You're only creating a limited idea or a limited creation of the very thing that is created within yourself. That it is created. You're making it relative. You're making your own creativeness relative. A thing external to yourself, something apart, an idea or an image. So So this divine power of wisdom and love, which is the foundation of all divine creations, was the foundation of divine healing. The healing which Jesus performed, which was not a creation of his own kind, was there all the time. He actually removed that which prevented it from manifesting. Divine healing has achieved wonders where all other methods have failed. The mind cannot penetrate into the realm of that which is beyond it. The mind can only reason on what it knows. But that which it does not know, that which is beyond reason, cannot be defined. It is in this realm that divine healing takes place. And you cannot define divine healing. You can't tell me what divine healing is. You can speculate about it just as you can speculate about the truth. But you can't think about the truth. You can only speculate about the truth. You can only think about something you know. You speculate about it. You can only think about the things that are not truth. And if you can see these things that are not truth, then you will arrive at that which is truth. So therefore, when you are beginning to think of healing, and divine healing is something that is beyond your mind, that you can't reason with it because it is not in your mind. It is something that is beyond your mind, something that already exists. It does not have to be created by you. You don't create divine healing. Now the question that comes into the individual mind is, how is this divine healing accomplished? How can that which is unseen accomplish such a complete and instantaneous change? Well, that which is unseen is that which is uncreated. Only in the uncreated, only in the formless is the creativeness. In the created is not creative. It is only the uncreated that is creative. Paul tells you clearly that things are not made out of things that are seen, but out of that which is unseen. And we see clearly then that the invisible, that invisible power that is beyond the mind of man, is a power which in itself is divine in nature. It carries with it three things, the trinity of itself: love, wisdom, and power. Power is the expression of the two manifesting in perfection. The perfection then of the divine cannot be compared with any perfection that we think about. And it cannot be compared in our minds because it is beyond our comparisons. We compare things because of the things that we know and see and feel. We compare one thing with another. But our comparisons are brought about through the understanding of what we are comparing. But you do not know what divine healing is. You do not know what divine perfection is. Therefore, it is beyond your comparisons. It's beyond the perfection of the mind of man. Therefore, you cannot say it is perfect according to your ideas and standards of perfection. But it is flawless and complete and having no flaw whatsoever because it is whole and there is no division in it. Phenomena of any kind are produced through a law that is intelligent. Otherwise you could have no phenomena at all. If I have a fear of anything, or if I have faith in anything, there is an intelligent law that operates equally alike in both. What I think in fear, and I think in faith. Therefore, both fear and faith originates from the same source. Originates from within myself. Therefore, what I think in faith and think in fear, I create, do I not? Because they exist within myself. Just as you say that you have harmonious vibrations and disharmonious vibrations, inharmonious vibrations and harmonious vibrations, and you say that your harmonious vibrations create harmony and so forth in your body, and your inharmonious vibrations create the opposite effect. But they both arise within yourself, don't they? They both arise from the same source. Therefore, you're living in duality. Do you not see that you're living in duality? But if you understand that they arise from the same source, you will know that according to your thoughts, so it is unto you, whether you think harmony or inharmony, whether you think things are evil or think things are good. Therefore, you're both tied together in duality. But that which in itself has no duality, doesn't exist in opposites, cannot be discerned in opposites. And if you are caught up in opposites, how can you discern that which is beyond opposites? But if you discern what opposites are, and you see clearly and distinctly that they both arise within yourselves, both your good and your bad, and your fear and your faith, your health and your ill health, and all these things arise within yourselves, then you have reached that which is not dual, which is not in opposites, because you understand opposites. These will fall away from you, and you become aware of something that is divine, and where there is no thinking in terms of opposites. But if you sit in a corner and keep repeating mantras from morning to night, you're hypnotizing yourselves, are you not? You're hypnotizing your mind. You're creating two things. At the same time you're trying to create a positive effect, you're stimulating the negative effect. So therefore you're caught up in both. To see distinctly then this one fact, and if you can see this clearly, that these things arise in yourselves and not outside yourselves, both your fear and your faith. Beyond that is divine healing, but you cannot tell what it is. You can only know that it is. So the intelligent law operates equally alike in both, what I think in fear and I think in faith. That is the law of thought, or otherwise electromagnetic vibrations. Truth is an exact science which has not yet been investigated by our scientists and physicists. The evidence of chaos around us is just this, that we have failed to understand the underlying principles of life. This tragic blunder prevents our best brains from investigating the subtle laws inherent in man. And this includes divine healing. Denying the existence of such laws does not eliminate the fact that there is something in man himself that heals, and sometimes instantaneously. If I plant a seed in the ground, that seed will take root. The life in the seed and the intelligence that is acting through the ground will cooperate, and in that cooperation the seed dies, and out of the seed grows 10, 20, 60, and 100 or more. It is the life that counts, not the seed. The seed is just the shell. But within the seed, the life continues to express itself according to the pattern, and that is the truth according to the pattern of man. Therefore, the seed of man is the Christ of God, the Son of God, being never separated from the Father, because if the Son was separated from the Father could not be infinite in nature. Neither could the Father or the Son exist if there was any separation between them. Therefore, the seed of man and woman is the Christ of God, that divine, perfect creation that exists eternally. It was the Word that was in the beginning, and and that Word was God, and the Word was made flesh. In this seed is the true healing that is divine, and in the Christ in you is divine power in each and every one. Therefore, the power to heal is within oneself. No matter how it may be brought about, it be brought about by the stimulation, by the knowledge, by the wisdom of someone else. But if that life was not in you, if the Christ was not in you, you could not be healed. That's another impossibility. At times it seems that an outside agency is required to set in motion this divine power. But this agency is not a necessity, for the simple reason that divine power is inherent in man himself. The greatest healer known to man through records handed down through the centuries was Jesus of Nazareth. And he never claimed that any power of his own was the source of his healings. His words were clear. It was the Father, whoever remained within him, performed these deeds. But how did he arrive at this state of consciousness? How did he arrive at the fact that it was the Father alone that was doing these things? If it was the self, it would be limited in nature, because the self is illusion, the self is a limitation. Every one of you who live in the self, you are limited by your conditioning, because it's the self that is conditioned. The Christ is never conditioned. But if you discern how you are conditioned, and you can read that conditioning perfectly, read it and reread it until you understand it completely, then it will fall away from you. You will know what it is. But if you're caught up in the conditioning, then are you not limited? And this self says, I am a healer, I shall heal, I shall do this, and I shall do that. That is the worst and most stupid thing that any individual can say, for the simple reason that why they fail in everything they do. It is vanity of the worst kind, because it's so subtle in nature. They think in themselves that the self is the power that does all these things. But supposing you get rid of the self altogether, and there stands the whole of the self gone completely, all conditioning gone, all ambitions, all these things that make up the self gone. Then that which is real in itself manifests itself completely. That was Jesus Christ, was the complete elimination of the self. And when he said these words, I of myself am nothing, it's the Spirit of the Father within me that doeth these things. There were never greater words ever spoken from the mouth of man than these words. And if you can comprehend them, then you will see what divine healing means. In speaking to his disciples, he also said that some had the power of speaking in various tongues. Some had the power of prophesying. Some had the power of seeing and hearing. And some had the power of healing. But it was the same Spirit that was behind all, showing that no matter what gift, we immediately limit ourselves to the personal. We separate ourselves from the divine source of all things. That is why so many people fail in this work. The self hides the divine. So the great task is to get the self out of the way. So when we get the self out of the way, and if you look into your own minds, you will see what the self is. And immediately you begin to see what the self is, that is self-knowledge. And self-knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. Self-knowledge is the beginning of freedom. Self-knowledge enables you to dispense with all these things that are hindering the expression of that which is real in itself, that which is not made up in your mind. Because that which is made up in your mind is not reality. Therefore, the knowledge of the self and the dispensing of the self leads us to that which is not made up in your mind. Every human being is endowed with the power of the Spirit, for it is the Spirit that gives birth to the individual. The Spirit is birthless and deathless. It is this Spirit which is the life in man. It is the source of ultimate knowledge, wisdom, and love. Oh, no man your Father on earth, or one is your Father who is in heaven. You're not born of the flesh of man, or the blood of man, or by the will of man, born of the Spirit of God. I wonder if you are now seeing something of the mind of Jesus, after I have been showing you what your own mind is like. And unless you see what your own mind is like, how can you see that which is beyond your mind? I know that Jesus went out into the desert. I know what he did when he went to the desert. Because the fact that I had to do the same myself. I was sent away on my own for days, for weeks, until such time as my mind was clarified, and everything that was known in my mind could be known to me. All my ideas, my hates, my jealousies, my envies, what they were, my ambitions and so forth, and everything that was made up in my mind. So I had to discern everything that was made up in my mind. The first week I came back and I thought I had fathomed the whole thing. And the Master said, "My son, you have not yet begun." And it is the same, and I can see how Jesus in the desert knew everything that was made up in his own mind. He discerned everything that was made up by himself, his thoughts, his images, his ideas. He recognized the self in this way, and that self was the devil that was always going in front and saying to Jesus, "Now have the power, you can do this and you can do that." So Jesus, recognizing the self of what it was, he says, "Get ye behind me, Satan," because he was talking then from the Christ, the Son of God. But you must recognize before you find the root, that root which is not of the mind, a root that is beyond the mind. The root that is in the mind is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But the root that is beyond the mind is the tree of life. And not until such time as you have searched the mind completely, understood that tree, so that you will not eat the fruit thereof, then you shall find the tree of life, and you shall cling to it, and it shall be a spring of living water rising up to eternal life. Jesus testified that it was from this divine realm, this omniscient and omnipotent state, that he, not separate self, but he, one with the Father, was performing these deeds. When the soldiers came in to the Garden of Gethsemane, and they were looking for Jesus, when he stepped forward and he said, "I am he," they fell on their knees, they fell on their faces. So was the power so great. He didn't say, "I am Jesus." He said, "I am he," because he was aware of his oneness with God. There was no separation. And the power that he wielded was so strong. Yet he gave way for the simple reason that he knew that through the sacrifice that he made, that the life which was within himself would shine forth again and again. That same light that was within himself would shine forth again in his glory. And as it is said in the beginning, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. And without that great truth, the words he spoke, you would not be listening to me this very evening. But if you carry away in your mind just a belief, an idea of what he said, it will still remain as an image and a belief and an idea in your mind. But if what I say can enable you to discern within yourselves that which was within Jesus the Christ, then you shall find that which is beyond your mind, that which is eternal and ever present. That which you create has a beginning and an ending. All your images and your ideas and your beliefs have a beginning and have an ending. They belong to the self. But that which is beyond the mind has no beginning and no ending. It is eternal. And I am that. I am the life. Now Jesus seemed to be an outside agency to those who looked upon him as separate from God. Yet he said that he was nothing by himself, and this was his great power. He knew that he was not separate from this life which was within others, but one and the same. Therefore he worked through the cosmic and not through the individual. If he worked through the individual, he could do nothing, because he'd be limited according to the individual. But he walked through the cosmic. There was no distance that he could not find the source of power and manifest that power at any distance from where he stood, because it was the one consciousness manifesting everywhere. It is difficult for the mind caught up in conformity and separation to realize this truth. But those who have contacted this divine realm have definite proof of its reality and can testify that it is true. Now I am speaking in relative terms of this great, wonderful, omnipresent source of being. And it would seem that I am speaking from something apart and separate from myself, but it is not so. I am speaking to you in relative terms only for the purpose of enabling you to find this divine source within yourselves. The fact that I am talking about this divine source makes it relative to you. And if I did not know, it would make it relative to myself. But the fact that I know that I'm talking in relative terms in regard to it, I know that what I'm making up in my mind in regard to it is not the truth itself, neither is this divine power, love, wisdom, because I do not create it. But in my relative words and the relative terms that I express in regard to it will lead you to understand also, when you think and speak of this, you will know that you are speaking in relative terms in regard to it, and you will not make it something separate to yourself. In this understanding, then, you will not be caught up in what you make up in your mind in regard to it, but you will know of what is in your mind is not the truth. Immediately we begin to speak about the divine source, we make it relative, something apart and distinct from ourselves. Nevertheless, when the mind has quietened down, there is an awareness that is not of the mind, but that which is beyond the mind, the source of everything in heaven and on earth. All power has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. is proof of the fact that Jesus who spoke those words found that source within himself. Otherwise he could not say, all power is given unto me in heaven and on earth. Immediately we begin to speak about this divine source, we make it relative. So you will see how stupid most people are when they do not know this truth. And they keep on making up in their minds this truth, and they will tell you that to know what truth is. No one knows what truth is. They know what they have made up in their mind about truth, but that is not true. And I am very careful indeed not to give you an idea of truth. What I'm doing continuously is trying to break down your ideas of truth. These ideas you've created in your own minds about truth. I'm continually trying to show you they are not truth, so that they can be broken down, but I'm very careful not to give you another idea of truth that you can build up in your own mind and say it is true, because it will just be another prison. Maybe a more comfortable prison, a nicer prison with a few armchairs and so forth, and you can sit down and talk about the truth, and you seem lovely and quiet and peaceful while you're talking about the truth and so forth, and you think it is the truth. If I had to talk about the truth, I would shut up. I wouldn't say a word. But if I could tell you what was not the truth, I would keep on talking forever. Do you see what I mean? So we do not talk or say what truth is. We can only say what truth is not. I hope you're beginning to reason now, because this is the essence of reason. But that which is truth is beyond even this reason, because reason is of the mind, but truth is beyond the mind. But reason and divine reason will lead you to the sound barrier, as it were. And there across that sound barrier is the truth, beyond reason. I wish I could make it plainer to you. It is not an idea or an image or something that you have made up in your mind, for it cannot be made up in the mind. If it were so, then it could be explained. But that which is cannot be explained, yet it is that which is living and which is creating in you and through you, creating through me. The Father, whoever remaineth within me, performing his own deeds. Hence the Master's words, know ye not I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. What do you mean by saying, show us the Father? Do you not know that I am in the Father, and the Father is within me? As the Father, whoever remaineth within me, is performing his own deeds. Know ye not I am in the Father, and the Father is in me, united in consciousness and creativeness. What I see the Father do, I do likewise. You understand that? Now we realize that sickness is the result of certain causes of neglect of natural laws. This comes about through ignorance and fear, lack of love, lack of understanding. Sickness is just a symptom revealing that the body has lost its natural balance and natural rhythm, and is struggling to regain its equilibrium, its natural harmony. So the attention of the mind has become focused upon the condition. In other words, the body is talking back to the mind, so the mind is caught up in what the body is feeling. Now, the mind is struggling, making a great effort to save the latter. It is precisely this struggle that is causing all the disturbance and displacement of the atoms, resulting in pain and discomfort. Have I not told you so often, give up your struggle? Imagine you cease struggling. You do not create the disturbance. But as your mind is struggling to overcome the condition, you begin to struggle. That which is eternal, ever present. Your struggling is performed in your mind. Your ideas of sickness are in your mind. Your belief, your sensations from the body become ideas and beliefs in your mind. And so you are caught up continually in your own conditioning. But if I know what is made up in my mind, what my conditioning is, how it has come about, why should I struggle with my own creation? If I know it is my own creation, it falls away, does it not? I begin to understand it. I struggle no longer in that which is eternal and ever present. It's giving expression to itself. It's no longer hindered. Perhaps you think I'm a boy. Yes, I'm still a boy, remember, and will continue to be a boy as long as I live upon this earth. And if it is the only thing, if you become boys and girls again, without a care in the world, like a little child born into this world, without being conditioned at all, then that which is giving expression to itself. But you can be boys and girls again, and you can acquire the habit now by living in the present. Living in the present, not in the past or the future, because that is in your mind. The past is memories, experiences. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. But they're both within you. And you are trying to separate one from the other. You try to separate the pleasant from the unpleasant, and you say this is so and so. But how can you do that when they're all within yourselves? How can you separate a harmonious vibration from an inharmonious vibration? How can you separate good and evil when they both grow out within yourselves? How can you separate opposites except by knowing what they are? In the mirror of the present, it will dissolve away. As you look at it, and it is mirrored in the present, this very present, this moment, and know it, it will pass away, dissolve away altogether. And in the mirror of the present, as you see it clearly now, not in the past or the future, but understanding it now, reading it, knowing it, no longer bothers you, no longer struggle with it. You are free. Only in the present can you live. You cannot live in the past or the future. These are made up in your mind. I am the living present. I am the life that is eternal and ever present. When I know that, I live in the present, not in the past or the future. Because the present is the only creativeness that exists. I cannot create in the future or in the past. Now is the time. The mind is conscious of feeling, and this feeling is registered in the mind as a disease. This disease is given a name, so the mind can now hold on to it. If this name conveys to the mind that it is an incurable disease, the mind accepts it. Thus man creates the burden for himself, and when he sees that he himself is the cause through ignorance of the truth, of his oneness with spirit, the burden falls away. Then the spirit life transforms the mind and body by its own perfect nature. In other words, you are conscious of health or disease because of the normal or abnormal function of your physical organs. All these feelings are within yourself. They're created within yourself, both of them. When there is a disruption among the cells of the body, a sad report is carried to the brain center. So the conscious part of your mind identifies itself with ill health. There is something wrong. Fear and apprehension enter in because you do not realize that the Spirit is all power, that the Christ in you is above all things and not subject to the conditions of the body. Yet the Christ can transform and renew the body. When you do not realize this truth, suggestions are sent to all parts of the body in support of the reports received in the brain centers. So the mind, ignorant of the truth, is not capable of using its first defense, divine reason, and accepts the report as final. So if the mind is incapable of its first defense, that's divine reason, it accepts those reports that come from various parts of the body to the brain and interprets it in your mind. And your mind creates a picture of what you think they are. Consequently, you create these troubles. You intensify them because the body is only mind materialized, and the mind interpenetrates the body, one interpenetrating the other. The consciousness is the ruling factor, and whatever the consciousness is aware of, so does the mind outpicture, so does the body accept. As Paul says, it was Eve that was deceived. Adam was not deceived. Quite clearly it was, because Eve was represented as the mother of life, as it were. Eve was the soul, and Adam was the body. And when the soul was deceived and fell, the body fell with it. So it is quite true, it was Eve that was deceived. Adam was not deceived, but Adam fell with Eve when she was deceived. So the soul is, as it were, the negative of what we call the female, because it penetrates and supports and surrounds the body. The soul is extended many times greater than the body. The body, in fact, exists in the soul. The soul does not exist in the body. The body exists in the soul, entirely different to what people think. Just as a pimple exists in your face, just as water exists in ether. Ether supports it and surrounds it. Just as my body exists in ether, supports it and surrounds it. So ether was the mother. Adam was the male. Eve was the female. So it was Eve that was deceived, and Adam fell with Eve. The serpent, crawling on the ground on his belly, was the deceiver. But when the head of the snake, the serpent, was crushed, it rose up no more, but it bruised the heel as it was being crushed. And it always is so, that the birth of truth is always difficult. Is it not difficult with you? It is not until you have made contact with the divine within, by yourself or by the aid of another who is able to show you the way, can true healing take place. Sometimes the Spirit is so moved within that a complete and instantaneous transformation takes place. This is divine healing. What really happens in sickness is that the patient's consciousness of health has disappeared and a consciousness of ill health has taken its place. He or she begins to lose cheerfulness, their energy lags, their vigor disappears. What fate has fallen the mighty will that supported the body? These qualities have temporarily disappeared because the mind has fallen under a spell of illusion of the reality of sickness. The mind has surrendered its sovereignty to the force of disorder and confusion. Some may resort to drugs, etc. as a final agency for the recovery, because this recovery is not forthcoming, a further acceptance of the condition is taken. But if by some means a chemical action takes place, there is a change for the better, then some believe in medicine as a means of recovery. But this causes further confusion, which leads to further trouble. When the patient finds in the end that drugs are no longer any help, then there is a further depression and apprehension. And when they find that, what do they seek? They seek someone else beyond drugs and the knife, to a source of someone who has a little more wisdom. The body is not an exclusive combination of chemical reactions. It is endowed with an intelligence, a knowing how, an amazing organization for the maintenance of body function. It is the animating power of life that is fundamental in producing motion and transformation. Natural medicines such as herbs, biochemics, etc., have in many cases an action upon the cell structure that produces a chemical reaction. This produces a powerful suggestion which the mind is induced to act. Such action in the mind will begin to reproduce a consciousness of health and restoration of the balance of harmony within the body. But if the mind is left in this state alone without understanding the laws inherent within, secondary state may be worse than the first. That's why Jesus said, when he cleansed them, that if they were not careful, the second state would be worse than the first. That he cleaned out one devil, but 7 devils might take its place, because lack of understanding, lack of awareness. Next week we will see the radioactivity of life forces in electromagnetic waves, retransforming the brain and body. Jesus turned round, and when he saw the woman, he said, "Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole." And the woman was made whole from that hour. Wholeness is not created by men. Wholeness is ever present. And if wholeness did not exist, then the woman could not be made whole. But through the understanding that Jesus, the Christ, in his oneness with the Father, having discerned everything that was made up in the mind, knowing it to be what it was, knew it was not real. And knowing that that which was not real, he dispensed with the power of his love and wisdom, which was the only creative principles underlying all creation. In these, the secret of divine healing. Thus then you understand that love and wisdom are the 2 pillars of the divine creation in yourselves, and the Christ is that which stands between them. You enter the door through those pillars into the Father, into all knowledge and wisdom and power. When you pass through the portals of the pillars of love and wisdom, you can say as you enter therein, all power has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. That is my message to you. Benediction. O conscious divine light, thou dost directly support my brain and body. Food that thou hast prepared for me are spiritualized within me into energy by thy cosmic life within. Now that I know thy presence is ever with me, I shall live more and more by thy direct cosmic energy and less by food. I am recharged with thy cosmic life, Almighty One. And now the storm of sensory disturbances has ceased to rage in my mind. The magic wand of thy presence is my healing. O blessed, divine Father of mine. Present me to sanctity beside you.